Hello and welcome to Tomorrow is Yesterday, the show where we review every episode of Star Trek in production order. My name is Brandon Couch and I have a confession to make. So, David and I recorded this full episode, or at least we thought we did, but we really just recorded the first 3 minutes. And that was my fault, so that's why David's not gonna be on this episode now. So that is my bad. Alright, and since it's just me, let's just get into it. The Devil in the Dark first aired on March 9th, 1967, written by Gene L. Coon, who we last mentioned for co-writing the teleplay for Space Seed, and directed by Joseph Pevney, who we last mentioned for directing A Taste of Armageddon. And let's get into our cast. We have DeForest Kelley as Dr. Leonard McCoy, who we last saw in This Side of Paradise, Ken Lynch as Vanderberg, James Doohan as Lieutenant Commander Scott, who we last saw in A Taste of Armageddon, Brad Weston as Ed Appel, Biff Elliott as Schmitter, George E. Allen as Engineer Number 1, even though he was actually a security guard, John Cavett as Guard, and Barry Russo as Lieutenant Commander Giotto. We open with a shot of a planet that we zoom in on, then we see this big matte painting of what looks like a big factory. Then we walk into this cave, a guy in a yellow jumpsuit walks in, followed by a bunch of guys in matching orange jumpsuits. The guy in yellow tells a guy in orange he's relieved. He says he didn't see anything, and another guy says, "Nobody ever does. Whatever this thing is, it's already killed 50 people. I never realized before how dark it is down here. Stay on your toes, Schmitter. Keep your phaser in your hand at all times." What good will that do? You saw what happened to Ed Appel when he shot at it. How about those other people before the monster got them? "I'm sorry, Schmitter. I know how you feel, but we've got to have guards." "Okay, Chief. I'll do what I can. Keep alert. If you hear anything or see anything, call in. Somebody can arrive in 3 minutes. A lot can happen in 3 minutes." The rest start to leave, and Schmitter asks if it's true that the Enterprise is coming. The Chief says yes. Then Schmitter asks if it can be here in the next 4 hours. The group leaves. Schmitter walks around the cave, phaser in hand, but then he hears this loud noise. He lets out a loud scream. The others hear it and run back in. Schmitter, like the rest of them, burned to a crisp. And that's our teaser. Our teaser is definitely giving horror movie vibes. Captain's log, stardate 3196.1. A distress call from the Pergean production station on Janus 6 has brought the Enterprise to that long-established colony. Mr. Spock, Dr. McCoy, and I have beamed down to meet with Chief Engineer Vanderberg, administrative head of Janus 6. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy beam into a hallway. A guy in an orange jumpsuit walks past them and gestures to a door without a word. They walk inside. Cut to Kirk saying, "Okay, assuming there is a monster, what did it do? When did this start?" "About 3 months ago, we opened up a new level. Sensors gave us an unusually rich pergium rating. Not only pergium, whatever you want. Uranium, cerium, platinum. The whole planet's like that. It's a treasure house." Kirk says, "Yeah, if mining wasn't so difficult, here you'd be able to supply the needs of 1,000 planets. But what happened? First, the automatic machinery, piece by piece, started to almost disintegrate. Metal began dissolving away. There was no reason for it, and our chemists were unable to analyze the corrosive agent." Spock says, "I'm sure there is an answer. It simply has not been discovered." "Yes, it has. I don't know what this butchering monster is, but I know what it's doing. Our maintenance engineers sent down to the drifts to repair the corroded machinery. We found them seared to a crisp." Kirk asks Spock if it's volcanic activity. Spock says no. Vanderberg says he's right, and that the deaths started down really deep, but have been moving up. The last death was 3 levels below where they're standing. McCoy asks to see the body. A guy in an orange jumpsuit leads him out of there. Kirk asks if they have guards. Vanderberg says yes, 5 of them are dead now. Kirk asks who else has seen this thing. A guy in a purple jumpsuit walks in and says, "I have." Vanderberg introduces Kirk and Spock to Ed Appel, Chief Processing Engineer. Kirk asks him to describe it. He says it's big and shaggy. Vanderberg says that Ed shot it. Spock says, "You mean shot at it?" And Ed's like, "No, I shot it." Vanderberg says, "Well, I've made my report to you. Production has stopped. Nobody will go down into the lower levels, and I don't blame them. If the Federation wants pergium, then you're going to have to do something about it." Ed's like, "You're all pretty tough, aren't you? Starship phaser banks, you can't get your starship down in the tunnels." Kirk says, "Well, I don't think we'll need to." Kirk asks for a complete subsurface chart of all the drifts, galleries, and tunnels. Vanderberg says okay. Spock picks up a sphere from the desk and asks what it is. "It's a silicon nodule. There are millions of them down there. No commercial value." but a geological oddity to say the least. Pure silicon? A few trace elements. Look, I didn't call you here so you could collect rocks. Kirk thanks Vanderberg and asks for complete cooperation. Vanderberg says they'll have it and leaves with Ed. Kirk and Spock look at the map. McCoy walks in. Schmitter didn't burn to death. Not in the usual sense anyway. Explain. Well, there are only fragments of bone and teeth left, but the planet's physician agrees with me. A chemical corrosion. Almost as if he'd been thrown into a vat of extremely corrosive acids. Strong enough to eat machinery? Strong enough to eat anything else that you can think of. Spock says that based on when and where the deaths happened, the creature must move incredibly fast. Vanderberg walks in. Kirk asks how old this map is. Vanderberg says it's a year old. Kirk says so from before the attacks. Kirk asks Spock about life below the surface. Within range of our sensors, there is no life, other than the accountable human residents of this colony. Beneath the surface, at least no life as we know it. Kirk says, we can't cover tunnel by tunnel on foot. We must get production going again. We must have that per GM. Spock suggests forcing the creature out. Vanderberg says, when that creature appears, men die. Cut to a guard patrolling a tunnel. We hear a scream, then see a huge hole in the door he was just standing next to. Back in the office, an alarm starts going off. They all run to the reactor room. That was the door the guard was standing next to. Vanderberg goes through the hole in the door. Kirk almost touches it, but Spock stops him, and Kirk and Spock both walk through the hole. Vanderberg says the main circulating pump for the entire reactor is gone. Spock points out it's the same marks as on the door. Kirk asks if they have a replacement. Vanderberg says no, it's too outdated, but they never had a problem with it. Kirk asks if they have anything on the ship. Spock says not anything that old. Without the pump mechanism, the reactor will go supercritical. It could poison half the planet. We can't shut it down. It provides heat and air and life support for the whole colony. Mr. Spock, we seem to have been given a choice, death by asphyxiation or death by radiation poisoning. And that is the end of Act 1. I like how they're just like, well, the pump never broke, so we never replaced it. That's why it's so old. Like, I know probably 20 guys who would say the same thing about any part. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Alright. We get a shot of the Enterprise, then cut to Scotty on the bridge. A PXK per... That is a terrible Scotty. A PXK per GM reactor? No, sir. We don't have any spare circulating pump for a thing like that. I haven't seen a PXK in 20 years. Kirk asks if he can rig one up. Well, sir, I can put together some odds and ends, but it won't hold for long. Kirk asks for how long? 48 hours, maybe, with a bit of luck. Kirk says that's better than nothing and tells him to get what he needs and beam down here with it. Vanderberg asks what happens when it breaks down. Kirk says hopefully we have the missing part by then. Vanderberg says that's a small chance. We'll have to, Chief. The alternative is to evacuate all your people to the Enterprise. A dozen planets depend on your per GM for the reactor. They're already screaming. Reactors closing down life support systems. I'm concerned with my people right here, Kirk. They're being murdered. You find that monster and kill it. Cut to Kirk, Spock, and McCoy in Vanderberg's office. The missing pump wasn't taken by accident. It was the one piece of equipment absolutely essential for the operation of the reactor. Do you think the creature is trying to push the colonists off the planet? It would seem so. But why now, Mr. Spock? These production facilities have been in operation for over 50 years. I don't know, but there is a possibility. Spock walks over to the silicon sphere on the desk. Kirk asks what? Life as we know it is universally based on some combination of carbon compounds. But what if life exists based on another element? For instance, silicon. You're creating fantasies, Mr. Spock. Not necessarily, Bones. I've heard of the theoretical possibility of life based on silicon. A silicon-based life would be of an entirely different order. It's possible that our phasers might not affect it. Certainly not Phaser 1, which is far less powerful than Phaser 2. Alright, how about this? A creature that lives deep in the planet below us, at home in solid rock. It seems to me that in order to survive, it would have to have some form of natural armor plating. It could explain much, especially since the colonists are armed only with Phaser 1. But our people have Phaser number 2, which I could adjust to be more effective against silicon. Silicon-based life is physiologically impossible, especially in an oxygen atmosphere. It may be, Doctor, that the creature can exist for brief periods in such an atmosphere before returning to its own environment. I still think you're imagining things. You may be right, Doctor, but at least it's something to go on. Kirk tells Spock to have Lieutenant Commander Giotto assemble a security team with Phaser 2s, but Spock just keeps staring at the sphere on the desk. You seem fascinated by this rock. Yes, Captain. You recall that Vanderberg commented there were thousands of these at the lower level, the level which the machinery opened just prior to the first appearance of the creature. Do they tie in? I don't know. Speculate. I have already given Dr. McCoy sufficient cause for amusement. I'd prefer to cogitate the possibilities for a time. A short time, Mr. Spock. We have very little. I like how in the subplot Spock is basically just Sherlock Holmes. Like, he has a theory and he's working on it. He doesn't have all the pieces yet, but like, once he gets more pieces, he's gonna have it figured out. Cut to Kirk, Scotty, and a red shirt in the reactor room. Well, sir, it's a plumber's nightmare, but it'll hold for a bit. It has to hold longer than a bit. Sorry, sir, that's about the best I can do, but I guarantee it's not good enough. Kirk gets a call on his communicator from Spock saying that the red shirts are in Vanderberg's office. Scotty, ride hard on it, kind words, tender loving care, kiss it, baby it, flatter it if you have to, but keep it going. Cut to Vanderberg's office, Kirk addressing the security team. You'll proceed from level to level, checking out every foot, every opening. You are searching for some sort of creature which is highly resistant to phaser fire. Phasers will be set on maximum, and remember this, 50 people have died. I want no more deaths. Except the bloody thing. That sounded like Scotty. It was supposed to be Vanderberg. The creature may or may not attack on sight. However, you must. It is vitally important we get this installation back into production. Spock asks Vanderberg where he found the silicon nodules. He says level 23. Kirk tells Giotto to start the search at the 23rd level. Giotto asks if there's a reason the creature may be on that level. Kirk just says it's a possibility they've discussed. Then tells Vanderberg to keep his men together on the top level in a safe place. I don't know any safe place, Captain. The way that thing comes and goes. Kirk dismisses the red shirts. Cut to a couple of red shirts patrolling the tunnels. Then we see Kirk and Spock patrolling a tunnel. Spock stops to use his tricorder. Kirk asks if he found something. Adjusting my tricorder to register for silicon, Captain. Interesting. Traces? A life form, Captain. Bearing 111 degrees. Elevation 4 degrees. One of our people? No, sir. Silicon. We cut to a security guard by himself. We hear the scraping noise from before. The monster pops up. The guard lets out a scream and... Kirk and Spock find the ashes of what's left of the red shirt's body. Kirk says the creature's got to be around here. Spock goes over to a tunnel with his tricorder. Says it was made moments ago. Kirk says, this tunnel goes back as far as the eye can see. Our best machinery couldn't cut a tunnel like this. Not even with phasers. Spock agrees. Then the monster shows up. They both hit it with their phasers and the creature gets the heck out of there. Disappeared. Astonishing that anything of that bulk could move so rapidly. Kirk notices the walls are hot. Spock says the tunnel was cut in the last 2 minutes. Giotto and a red shirt show up, ask if they're alright and if they saw it. Kirk says yes to both and asks where the tunnel goes. Spock says there's a maze of tunnels in that direction. Giotto asks if they shot it. Kirk says yes, and Spock picks up the piece that they shot off of it. It's not animal tissue. What is it? The closest approximation I could come to would be fibrous asbestos, a mineral, Captain. Then your guess was right. It would seem so. Silicon-based. Summation? We are dealing with a silicon creature of the deep rocks, capable of moving through solid rock as easily as we move through the air. That would account for the tunnels. Correct. This creature's body secretes extremely powerful corrosive, powerful enough to dissolve the door of the reactor chamber, and it explains the murdered men. It's definitely phaser resistant. We had our weapon set for silicon and on full power, yet we only damaged it. It still lives. Giotto asks if it's impossible to kill. Kirk says no, it might require many phasers. Spock says, or one with longer contact. Commander, pass this on to your men. We knew it was a killer, now it's wounded. Probably in pain somewhere back there. There's nothing more dangerous than a wounded animal. And that is the end of Act 2. We pick up right where we left off. Kirk tells Giotto to concentrate his search in this sector and remind the men that the creature is wounded. Giotto leaves. I've run a complete spherical check on all life forms, radius 100 miles. I've located our men, all of them, and I've located one creature moving rapidly through native rock, bearing 201, and that is all. One creature in 100 miles? Exactly, Captain. There are literally thousands of these tunnels in this general area alone, far too many to be cut by this one creature in an ordinary lifetime. Then we're dealing with more than one creature, despite your tricorder ratings, or we have a creature with an extremely long lifespan. Or it is the last of a race of creatures which made these tunnels. If so, if it is the only survivor of a dead race, to kill it would be a crime against science. Mr. Spock, our mission is to protect this colony to get the Pergeum moving again. This is not a zoological expedition. Maintain a constant reading on the creature. If we have to, we'll use phasers to cut our own tunnels. We'll try to surround it. I'm sorry, Mr. Spock, but I'm afraid the creature must die. Spock says he sees no alternatives. It's just a pity. The red shirts are gathering in the main tunnel. Cut to the red shirts in the main tunnel. So, it's wounded, and therefore twice as dangerous. Stay in pairs. If you see it, concentrate your phaser fire at what appears to be its head. Concentrate it, maintain it. It is definitely resistant, but it can be hurt. And if it can be hurt, it can be killed, Mr. Spock. Gentlemen, if you'll examine your charts, please. I have located the creature in the area marked Adit 26, moving in bearing 201. This particular group will move out beyond that area in all directions in an effort to surround it and possibly capture it. Kirk, Leslie, and the White Rabbit all give Spock a look. Kirk orders the red shirts to shoot to kill, and they all leave. Kirk tells Spock that he never gave the order to capture. Spock says that's true. He just thought that if they had the chance. Kirk says that the creature will be killed on sight. Mr. Spock, I want you to assist Scotty in maintaining that makeshift circulating pump. I beg your pardon, sir? You heard me. It's vital that we keep the reactor in operation. Your scientific knowledge is not needed there, sir. Mr. Scott has far more knowledge of nuclear reactors than I do. You're aware of that. Mr. Spock, you are the second in command. This will be a dangerous hunt. Either one of us by himself is expendable. Both of us are not. Captain, there are approximately 100 of us engaged in the search. Against one creature, the odds against you and I both being killed are 2,228.7 to 1. 2,228.7 to 1? Those are pretty good odds, Mr. Spock. And they are, of course, accurate, Captain. Of course. Well, I hate to use the word, but logically, with those kind of odds, you might as well stay. But please stay out of trouble, Mr. Spock. That is always my intention, Captain. I like how this scene goes from super serious to comical in just one conversation. Kirk's communicator beeps, he answers it. Scotty here, Captain, my brilliant improvisation has just gave up the ghost. It couldn't stand the strain. Kirk asks if he can fix it. Scotty says no, so Kirk orders him to evacuate the colonists to the Enterprise. Vanderberg says that he and some of his crew are going to stay and help with the search. Kirk says they don't have enough phasers. Vanderberg says then they'll use clubs. Kirk agrees, tells Scotty to get everyone else aboard the Enterprise so they'll have more air, and asks how long they have. Scotty says the reactor will go supercritical in 10 hours. Fade to Kirk, Spock, and Vanderberg's crew in the tunnels. Team up with the Enterprise security personnel. They're better armed than you. Keep someone inside at all times. Vanderberg, take 2 men, go through the tunnel there, rendezvous with Commander Giotto. Appel and the rest of the men go through there and tie up Lieutenant Osborne's detail. Mr. Spock and I will control the operation from a central point. That is all. The miners leave. Spock tells Kirk they're being watched. Kirk asks if it's intuition. No, sir. We are being watched. They start to walk around. Spock's readings indicate they found some fresh tunnels. Kirk says they converge a few thousand yards away and to split up. Spock asks if they should split up. Kirk says, well, there's 2 tunnels and 2 of us. So yeah. They split up, both crawling through the tunnels. Kirk finds a cavern full of those silicon nodules and tells Spock. Spock says to make sure not to damage any of them. Kirk asks why, and Spock says he just has a theory. The creature causes a cave-in. Spock offers to phaser him out. Kirk says no, that might bring the rest of the wall down. Just meet me where the tunnels meet. Spock's concerned and, quote, quickens his pace. Kirk sees a hole burn into a wall. The creature approaches him, and that is the end of Act 3. Kirk and the creature have a bit of a standoff. Kirk lowers his phaser and the creature approaches. Kirk lifts his phaser and the creature backs off, and so on. Kirk's communicator beeps, he answers it. Spock tells him the creature is in this area. Kirk says that's okay, he knows exactly where it is. Where, Captain? 10 feet away from me. Kill it, Captain, quickly. It's not making any threatening moves, Spock. You don't dare take the chance, Captain. Kill it. I thought you were the one who wanted it kept alive, captured if possible. Jim, your life is in danger. You can't take the risk. It seems to be waiting. I remind you, it's a proven killer. I'm on my way. Spock out. We get a shot of Appel and some of the other miners searching through a tunnel. Kirk sits down. Well, what do? Just talk it over? The creature turns around and we see the wound that he and Spock gave it. Spock runs in, phaser drawn. Kirk orders him not to shoot. After a moment, Kirk waves Spock over, and he comes and squats by the captain. Spock finds it fascinating that it hasn't moved against Kirk. Kirk says he tried talking to it, but no good. Spock points points at a pile of silicon nodule. Kirk says there are thousands all over the place. Spock seems unsurprised. Kirk asks if it means something. Spock isn't sure yet. Captain, you are aware of the Vulcan technique of the joining of two minds. Mr. Spock, I know it's a terrible personal lowering of mental barriers, but if there's a chance, I'll try. Spock approaches, the creature backs up, Spock holsters his phaser, doesn't even touch a thing, and pain, pain, pain! He falls back, Kirk catches him, the creature climbs onto a rock, then climbs off the rock. It's burned in the words, "No kill I." Kirk asks what that means, Spock doesn't know, but in my brief contact with the creature's mind, I discovered it is a highly intelligent, extremely sophisticated animal, in great pain of course, because of its wound, but not reacting at all like a wounded creature. It calls itself a Horta. Kirk tells Spock he's got to re-establish contact, we need that device. Spock says it has no reason to give it to us, and every reason to want us gone. Kirk's like, yeah, but if only we could win its confidence. He pulls out his communicator and tells McCoy to grab his medkit and get down there. Spock says that the Horta is silicon, so McCoy's medical knowledge will be totally useless. Kirk says he's a healer, let him heal. Then tells Spock to re-establish contact. Spock says okay, but I'll have to touch it. Kirk calls Giotto on the communicator. Giotto says he's at the end of the tunnel holding off Vanderberg and his men. Kirk says not to let them through and to make sure McCoy gets through. Spock mind melds with the Horta. Murder of thousands! Devils! Eternity ends! The Chamber of the Ages! The Altar of Tomorrow! Murderers! Stop them! Kill! Strike back! Monsters! McCoy runs in confused. Kirk tells him to help the creature. He pulls out his tricorder and scans the wound. Spock still mind melding. The end of life! Murders! Bones goes back to Kirk saying, I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer. Would McCoy make a good bricklayer? McCoy would probably make a good bricklayer. Kirk says, you're a healer, that's a patient, that's an order. Then he tells Spock to tell it we're trying to help. Understood. It is the end of life. Eternity stops. Go out into the tunnel, to the Chamber of the Ages. Cry for the children. Walk carefully in the Vault of Tomorrow. Sorrow for the murdered children. The thing you search for is there. Go, go. Sadness. Sadness for the end of things. Go into the tunnel. There is a passageway. Quickly, quickly. Kirk goes through the tunnel. Appel is arguing with Giotto because the miners want to go in and kill the monster. Kirk enters a cavern full of nodules, some broken in half, and picks up the device. Cut to McCoy on his communicator saying, that's right, Lieutenant, just beam it down to me, immediately, and never mind what I wanted for. I just want it, now move. Spock's still mind melding. It is time to sleep. It is over. Failure. The murderers have won. Death is welcome. Let it end here. Kirk walks in and has to snap Spock out of it. Kirk says he found the device and about 1 million silicon nodules. He asks, they're eggs, aren't they? Spock says yeah, and they're about to hatch. Appel pulls a major look on the red shirts and the miners beat them with the clubs. The miners come running in and Kirk and Spock stop them. Don't fire. First man that fires is dead. That thing has killed 50 of my men. You've killed thousands of her children. What? Those round silicon nodules that you've been collecting and destroying, they're her eggs. Spock jumps in. There have been many generations of Horta on this planet. Every 50,000 years, the entire race dies. All but one, like this one. But the eggs live. She cares for them, protects them, and when they hatch, she is the mother to them. Thousands of them. The creature here is the mother of her race. Kirk jumps in. The Horta is intelligent, peaceful, mild. She had no objection to sharing this planet with you till you broke into her nursery and started destroying her eggs. Then she fought back in the only way that she knew how, as any mother would. Fight when her children are in danger. We didn't know. How could we? You mean if these eggs hatch, there'll be thousands of those things crawling around down here? This is where they live. They digest rock. They tunnel for nourishment. And they are the most inoffensive of creatures. They harbor ill will towards no one. Appel's like, hey man, we got per diem to deliver. You've complained this planet is a mineralogical treasure house if you had the equipment to get at it. Gentlemen, the Horta moves through rock the way we move through air, and it leaves tunnels, the greatest natural miners in the universe. It seems to me we could make an agreement, reach a modus vivendi. They tunnel, you collect and process, and your process operation will be 1,000 times more profitable. Spock says the problem is that the Horta might die. It won't die. By golly, Jim, I'm beginning to think I can cure a rainy day. Can you help it? Help it? I cured it. How? Well, I had the ship beam down 100 pounds of that thermoconcrete, you know, the kind we use to build emergency shelters out of. It's mostly silicone. So I just troweled it into the wound, and it'll act like a bandage until it heals. Take a look, it's as good as new. Kirk asks Spock if the Horta will go for their pitch. It seems logical, Captain. The Horta has a very logical mind, and after close association with humans, I find that curiously refreshing. We get a shot of the Enterprise and cut to the bridge. Kirk enters. Spock tells him Vandenberg is on Channel 1. Vandenberg tells Kirk that they've already started hatching. They're discovering pergium, gold, platinum, rare earths. I'm delighted to hear that, Chief. Once Mother Horta tells her kids what to look for, you people are going to be embarrassingly rich. You know, the Horta aren't so bad once you get used to their appearance. Vandenberg says thanks and Kirk ends the transmission. Curious what Chief Vandenberg said about the Horta is exactly what the Mother Horta said to me. She found humanoid appearance revolting, but she thought she could get used to it. Oh, she did she? Now tell me, did she happen to make any comment about those ears? Not specifically, but I get the distinct impression she found them the most attractive human characteristic of all. I didn't have the heart to tell her that only I have. She really liked those ears? Captain, the Horta is a remarkably intelligent and sensitive creature with impeccable taste. Because she approved of you. Really, Captain, my modesty does not bear close examination, Mr. Spock. I suspect you're becoming more and more human all the time. Captain, I see no reason to stand here and be insulted. Spock walks away, a head warp factor 2. We get one last shot of the Enterprise flying through space, and that is the end of our episode. So, I asked David this question. I asked him if he noticed anything missing from the episode. He kind of got there. He said Uhura and Sulu. He's half right. He's half right because of Uhura. This episode actually had no female parts in it. No female spoke at all in this episode. This was actually noticed by Gene Roddenberry, and so in a memo he wrote to Gene L. Kuhn, he said, per NBC's continual reminder to us, one of which I find myself agreeing with, we should make some more use of females as crew members in Planet Stories, or find some way to include females among groups of miners who are here on the planet years at a time. Granted again that this can get phony and unbelievable if not handled right, but let's keep in mind that we're in a century where women are granted equal status and responsibility with men. We should keep reminding the assistant directors of this and discuss same with directors so that they can oversee and control same. Only other note I have on this is William Shatner himself had a tragedy while they were filming this episode. His dad died. He was gonna go, but he couldn't get a flight out, so he just stayed and filmed the rest of the episode. But yeah, that was unfortunate. And David noted during our first recording that this is actually one of William Shatner's favorite episodes because Leonard Nimoy did a funny voice. Alright, and now let's go to the red shirt death count. This week we lost 1 red shirt, which means in total we've lost 2 beige shirts, 4 blue shirts, 5 gold shirts, 1 hazard vest guy, 4 red shirts, and a total of 16 crewmen. And we do count the beige shirts as red shirts, so we now have 6 red shirt deaths on the board. And now it's time for
You Betrayed Your Uniform!
The segment where I point out uniform inconsistencies. Lieutenant Commander Gio is wearing full commander's rank stripes. And honestly, that inconsistency has been pretty consistent in this season. And that was
You Betrayed Your Uniform!
All in all, I think it was a really good episode. Good story about how they're hunting a monster, then find out it's actually just a creature protecting its young, and they're the bad guys. Yeah, it was a good episode, though. Join me next week for Errand of Mercy. That one will also just be me, but that one's not my fault, I promise. You can find me everywhere at Couch Talks Movies. You can find David on Instagram at _actual David_Moss. God, he needs to change that. You can also find him on TikTok at Commodore Moss. And you should look up his YouTube channel, Pops on a Budget. And you can find the show at Tomorrow Trek Pod on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and at patreon.com/tomorrowisyesterday. And don't forget to check out our stuff on the Couch Podcast Network store at couchtheaters.com. It's a long story. And until next time, live long and don't kill the Horta.